Welcome back, welcome in, welcome all to another episode of the Like That podcast with your hosts, Nick and Brooklyn. No Nico this week,
I
unfortunately.
think this is the first time that's ever happened.
I know. This is the first time it's you and I leading the charge. So we'll see
We're
how
all gonna
this
fall
goes.
apart.
But you were missed last week, you know?
Yeah, midterms week and in school mid quarters. A lot of projects, a lot of deadlines. Yeah, there's just no way would have been able to go spit my opinions about sports and such for an hour and a half.
Well, you missed a fun episode last week, but luckily there's a bunch to get into this week. We have
Mm.
our NBA playoff brackets. Obviously, we have our teams of the week for the final week of the season and our players of the week that we're going to go over. And we also have some of our first round best bets that Brooklyn and I are going to share. But before we get into that, there were some playing games that happened last night. Of
Oh, we're there.
Oh, yes, there was. Of course, I believe the first game of the night, it was the Charlotte Hornets against the Miami Heat. And I wasn't watching the game. I was working, but I got the notification. So, Brooklyn, if you kind of want to explain what happened, because I know you were watching it.
Nico and I are just playing the show. We're just like, oh, let me go check in on this Heat Hornets game. It's a little bit past halftime, not quite crunch time yet, and we basically just kind of followed the second half to the end of the fourth quarter. But that last like 4 minute stretch, and of course overtime, was just ridiculous. They were just going tit for tat. I know there's a lot going around about LaMelo, and I don't know if you saw the clip about. I mean, it looked pretty clear. He kind of swiped Bam's feet out from underneath him. Whether that was on purpose, leave that to the league to decide. But Andrew Wiggins popped off, and obviously your season's on the line. You got to put your best performance out. Davion Mitchell had 28, highest score on that team. Obviously with Bam, who knows what that actually looks like. But the unsung, not even unsung heroes, the heroes of this game, like neither team between the Hornets or the Heat known for defense. As a matter of fact, the Hornets, you could probably just say that they're just some straight shooters, right? Like they depend on their winning solely off of how many if their scores can get hot.
I would say so.
And but yeah, but not a team known for decent defense. Neither is the Heat. Tyler Hero, or sorry, Kobe White, with a miracle shot 3-pointer in the corner with like 3 seconds left. OT comes up. It seemed almost impossible. I mean, Tyler Hero had a corner three that brought the Heat, I think, to within one, or maybe it was two. Uh, Equally as insane as Kobe White's. And then
Mm.
LaMelo just, in Duke basketball fashion, turns the ball over at half court. Fouls Tyler Hero in that same sequence on a three. Hero hits all three, and if LaMelo would have had some nasty DMs if he didn't save his own ass there at the end of that game with that little scoop layup.
Right.
Um, Interesting part about that game also, if you were watching it on Prime, whole telecast or broadcast just went out for like for like a good minute and a half.
Gotta love
People were just
Amazon,
forced to
man.
watch it on real. I'm like on Xbox with Nico, like, did you just lose service? He's like, yeah, and then this blue banner just pops up on everyone's screen. Just technical difficulties with like some elevator music playing in the background. we come back, and then they're on the bench, and the Hornets are now somehow up by a point, and we're like, wait, what the fuck just happened? So
Well,
it was an insane game, and then I didn't get to watch the Trailblazers one because I had some stuff to do early this morning, so early bedtime. But Denny Avdia putting up 40 points, sending the Suns packing in
for now.
probably, I mean, sending the Suns packing in typical fashion. I'm not sure what the Suns have done in recent history that's been notable.
Mm.
But another disappointing season for them. Dylan Brooks played pretty well, 20 points. I mean, Mark Williams seriously disappointed, 22 minutes and 4 and 4
Well,
logged in that game.
they're not out of it yet. They're not out of it yet. They still have one game left. So with the Hornets win, the Miami Heat, they're out. They're donezo.
Yeah.
So now, depending on who wins tonight between the Magic and the Sixers, who loses that game, they go on to play the Hornets.
Play Charlotte. Yep.
Right, and then that determines who will play Detroit. Same thing over in the West too, with the Suns losing now. The game tonight, probably one of the worst playing games that I could have ever seen. The Clippers and the Warriors. That game's gonna be awful. Whoever
Dean
wins that,
Santos versus the Claw.
yeah, whoever wins that, is going to play Phoenix for the one, and they get a dance with the Thunder. But I would say,
Best of
for
luck.
the playing games that were, I don't know about you. I wasn't really a big fan of the play-in when it first came in. I thought it was kind of stupid. But I mean, recently, with the games of how entertaining they are, it's cool. It's cool to see teams like really try to play for something to get in, to make an appearance. And I would like to see a team like Charlotte in the playoffs. I think that like they're an exciting young team. They got a lot of big young names. That'd be cool. So,
No, I'm with you. And Charlotte's a team that I've been rooting for ever since they kind of started to pick up the pace a little bit.
hmm.
Just because like yeah, they're a young team. There's no one really that you could possibly hate on the Hornets unless you're still angry at Miles Bridges. But time's passed. Um,
But
but but no, yeah, they're a team I would definitely love to see have some sort of a run in the playoffs, even if it's stopping after the first round. But I don't think anyone expected to see them even kind of in this conversation. Uh, but even then, now Phoenix with one more chance to prove themselves. I feel like that roster is too talented to just be sent home.
right.
But it depends on who they end up playing. If the Clippers choke this game with Garland and Kawhi Leonard, I think that the Suns kind of get a walk in the park against Golden State if Curry doesn't blow them out the water.
Well, we'll get into that. We'll get into that in a little bit. But so
Mm.
aside from the plans, we're gonna get into now our teams of the week, and I'll kick this off. My team of the week, my Boston Celtics. Okay, 8-2 in their last 10. They finished the season first in opponent points per game defensively. They allowed 107 points per game, best in the league. Second in offensive field goal percentage, 44% allowed to teams. That's second best, right behind the Thunder at 43. They looked really good to finish the season. I mean, a lot of their key role players stepped up. Baylor Scheinman had 30 the other night. They look really, really good, and they actually were a sneaky team. I checked today. They finished second best with against the spread record in the NBA, right behind Charlotte, 49-33. A lot of those games, and probably a lot of that came from just resting like JB and Tatum, and they were underdogs for a lot of the games towards the end of the season. And they still came out and were able to win. But yeah, Celtics, and we'll get into this when we go into our bracket in a little bit, but. They look like a powerhouse, man. They look really good. I mean, from the top four teams in the East right now, I'm most confident in them. I don't know about you.
I think that we've been talking about the Celtics and giving them the flowers almost every single episode, and I got nothing bad to say about Boston. Like again, no one expected Boston to, maybe they were a play-in team, but nowhere even close. Top three, top four territory right there, and them being arguably to me the strongest team in the East now with Tatum back as they are getting their momentum. It is going to be a scary team to go against. Questions are really just going to be can they stay dominant in that late stretch? Once you get past that first round and eventually past that second round, if they get past that, we'll talk about how far we have them going. But you're playing some serious ball there, right? It's the playoffs. This is the whole reason why you work this hard. So Celtics, as good as they've looked, expect that same exact sort of talent coming at you with some of these teams in the East right now. I was looking at the Warriors' record. How does a team that's 37-45 even have a chance to possibly be in the playoffs?
Dude, we're gonna get into that in a little bit, but also
Going.
it's
Go ahead.
just, I was gonna say Celtics too, 30-11 at home this season. So
Yeah. No, they've been great, and I think they're hitting their stride just at the right time. And going into this playoff stretch now, it's when you need to have everything firing on the right cylinders there. But going to my team of the week, gonna be Houston, and it's gonna be a pretty simple reasoning for this one. 9-10 in your last 10 in a stretch where that whole area of the West was very tight. Like right after Luka went out, Austin Reeves is down now for the count, and Lakers ultimately finished fourth, but separated by the Rockets by just one win. And that last 10 game stretch for the Rockets, I know they haven't had the most difficult schedule in that last 10, but capitalized on it, right? 9-1. Timberwolves finished 3 games behind them. 3 losses in there, and Minnesota is now somehow made in the 6th seed. Definitely no like danger to beat in the play-in, but the Rockets kind of needed this. I think that they have had so many letdowns this entire season. Amen Thompson exploding for a 40-point game, a guy who, I mean, no jumper whatsoever. So, but to see that he can still put up that sort of volume and find some opportunities to take over. Great sign for them. It's a team that finishes the regular season within the top 10 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. So struggles aside, and what you see in the win-loss column, it's a team that still very much competes. They play very well on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I was gonna say, like, aside from Denver, Houston is probably one of the second hottest team right now in the league. I mean, and that was kind of the thing all year. I feel like their offense wasn't necessarily there, and their defense couldn't necessarily make up for it. But now, especially with getting matched up with the Luka-less Lakers, I think this is prime example of how good and dominant their defense is going to be, and it's also going to really showcase their young guys like I always forget which one it is. One of the Thompson twins,
Man.
Amin Thompson. Jabari Smith, because it's kind of, I don't know if you looked at Katie's season stats, but it's like steady decline. And I mean, obviously the usage rate isn't necessarily as there as it's needed to be. But I also think their young players, especially in this series, are going to shine. I think Sengun's going to shine, especially too.
Yeah, and a big chance for Reed Shepard to step up too. I mean, he's been a guy that not sneaky by any means. Like when Reed Shepard's on the court, he's impactful, and I know he's a small guard. But also for you to just to remember who your Thompsons are, the better one is on the Rockets.
Okay.
It's always a man.
Amen.
But
Amen.
yeah, but yeah, Reed Shepard on that team. Tari Eason's starting to be picking things up now. I mean, they have a good backup, I would say, good set of backups that can fill in. KD, decline, yes, but he still gets his moments. It's a proven scorer. That's why he's one of the best. Not one of the best, well, not in that topic of the best of all time, but one of the best players to ever play basketball. Is just because he is so dominant on the scoring side, and that combo. If they can just get everything clicking now, going into the playoffs. I mean, again, this is what it all comes for, right? This is the whole reason why this team was put together, is to make this run. So, I'd keep my eyes on Houston in the playoffs. You got some guys with some veteran experience in there. Katie's won a finals. Plenty of experience, man. Man's been around since the Supersonics. Like,
It's been around for a little bit.
Like this Rockets team is definitely not to be slept on. They've had some struggles, but they found their rhythm late.
Well, moving to teams to sleep on.
Yeah, I'll open this one up, and I'm sorry to step on any toes there. Now that we're recording this the day after the first of the play-in games. But I'd written this down before that game even tipped off yesterday. Miami, man, and I just haven't loved how they've been playing late in the stretch, especially in the playoffs or the play-ins, these last 10 games have been super impactful. Last 10 games, Miami Heat have finished 5-5, and 5 wins. If they got maybe a couple more, they're playing a completely different team. They might even be within the top 6. Atlanta snuck in there, 46 wins. Miami's at 43. So obviously some things have to go right there, but a lot didn't go right. Team that's also 4-6 against the spread in their last 10. If you want to put that in perspective, they are significantly just underperforming. And you can say what you want about this Heat roster. I think that I had a little bit higher expectations for them. I thought Tyler Hero was going to be a little bit more. I thought the whole thing was going to mesh together a bit better. It just didn't. You found something great in Norman Powell, but he's 32. How consistent is that going to be going into the next couple of years? Kalel Ware, okay. He's a serviceable center going forward. You found Son and Jaime, though. He's nice to keep going forward if you're the Heat. And, of course, you got Bam as that centerpiece. Now, we got that sleeper notification for those of you who use sleeper that Miami is planning on making a franchise-altering move. And I can't really speculate what that is. It might be something with Giannis, if I had to guess.
Probably. I feel like this team has just kind of been in the midst of figuring out what to do after Jimmy Butler, like since this whole thing.
But it's been a while.
Yeah, I know, but like,
at least the Nets were like, "Fuck everything, get it out."
Yeah,
we'll just suck.
But this is a team that they went out and they got Norman Powell, but like they really haven't made any big upgrades. They haven't done anything in the trade market. Like Pat Riley hasn't gone out and tried to get major free agents. And I don't know. I feel like that foundation at this point with Hero and Bam, like it's not working. Like you made 2 finals with Jimmy, but that's all you really have to say for it. Like since then, you've been a bottom tier team in a conference that is considered lackluster. So
Yeah, and you got an Andrew Wiggins who like he's played pretty decent this year, and I honestly didn't think he had that spark left in him again after
mhm.
Golden State. I know he had some other outside of basketball issues there that kind of took him away from basketball for a bit, but when he came to the Heat, I was like, you got an Andrew Wiggins way past his Timberwolves days, and I don't know if he necessarily panned out to be what he was supposed to be. I know he had some really great years, but I didn't think Andrew Wiggins was going to step up and have this role. I didn't think Norman Powell was going to step up and have such a big role for them. He was a good second or third option for the Clippers, and all of a sudden he's like one of their best players, if not Bam. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, obviously it is Bam at the front runner, but it's a team that I think I thought I had a lot higher expectations to than to just lose to a team like Charlotte. Not saying that Charlotte's bad. Charlotte's an offensive, you know, blazing hot gun as long as they're able to click, but. I thought I had higher expectations for the C team.
Right. Well, your team played last night. Mine plays tonight. My poop team, Golden State Warriors. 3-7 in their last 10. You end your season on a loss to the Kings. And not only that, you lose. Their last game of the season was to the Clippers, the team that they're playing to tonight, with Curry active, by the way. Kawhi did not play in that game. They are 8 games behind from the 8 seed. So even if they do win, like, in my opinion, this is a team that even if they make it out of the play-in, they should not be in the first round. You are a team below 500 by 8 games. And at this point, like, I understand why you're bringing back Curry. I really do, because it's a play-in, and it's like, realistically, it's like the team under you is the Pelicans, and they finished their season on a 9-game losing streak. No one was catching up to you for the 10. But at that, it comes to a point where if you're the front office, why even bring him back? Why are you gonna do that? Like, it's the greatest
For the,
shooter
for
of.
the simple
I,
for the simple reason of it's your season on the line, and you can't sit back and take defeat, especially if you have a 0.01% chance to cause an upset. Like, I know Curry's a guy who's 38 years old, and he's still an exceptional sharpshooter. I don't. Like I don't think you can just sit back as the Warriors and just like say like well it's B Pods and Kristaps championship to win now. Like if you got a chance with Curry healthy to do anything, you have to take it. And I know he's only had 4 games since his injury, but I understand where you're coming from. The Warriors can't just sit back and take that L though. But I agree that if they get past this first couple games here, they're not coming and they're not going any further
I
than the
just think
first
it'd be
round.
ugly. I just think it'd be really ugly, and I think it'd be embarrassing for Curry,
I mean,
personally.
hey, maybe the torture chamber's answer is just Steph Curry. Like you've seen how many
Unless he
double
just
teams.
destroys his ankle again.
God forbid, man. I mean, Curry's one of those players that like when I first started watching him play basketball, I was like, oh, I hate how this guy just shoots threes all the time because like that wasn't necessarily a big part of basketball yet. This is before Curry hit like his major prime, like 2017-ish era. Um, but he's not a player you can like really hate.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's just he changed basketball.
Right.
But yeah, I don't think the Warriors have much of any talent to keep anything going. Maybe or past the first round if they end up seeing the Thunder, that's a unit that's just been exceptional all year. Whereas, what does this team look like when Curry's completely healthy, but B Pods has kind of been running the show, and Kristaps might be healthy for all these games? Like I don't know, it's a weird dynamic that I don't think the Warriors have seen this year.
Definitely. I mean, this is a team that's been injured, like riddled with injuries all season long. They kind of really didn't have a chance, but it's at the point now where I just kind of feel like the damage has been done, and they're just trying to make up for it. But
Yeah, and you
now,
offloaded Kaminga. Yeah,
yeah,
no,
that's
you're right.
true. But moving over now, doing our players and poop players of the week. We'll keep this one short and sweet because I want to talk about playoffs a little bit more. I don't know about you, but to kick this off, my player of the week, funny enough, is actually Houston Rocket, Jabari Smith. In his last 10, over 14.5 points, he has hit 9 out of his last 10. He's averaged 18. Over 1.5 3-pointers has hit 9 out of his last 10. He's averaging 3 made 3-pointers in his last 10. 10 for 10 points assists in his last 10, and 10 for 10 in PRAs in his last 10. I know you were mentioning Amen already, but I mean, hey man, Jabari Smith, he's been balling for this Houston Rockets team, and if you've been putting the currency on him, hey man, you've been winning money. And this is a prime example too, kind of like the um Ao Bisomo kind of thing, where like season wise he hasn't been great betting at all, but in the last 10 stretch, especially for this Rockets team that's won their last 9, he's been on fire, dude.
One of those really streaky guys, and yeah, I like how you mentioned Ayo Dosunmu. Like, if I'm a bookmaker, like I would hate to be like, what should we put for Jabari Smith's line tonight? Because the Rockets are a team where, like, yeah, a lot of volume is going to come through Kevin Durant and Sengun, but you can't. It's hard to account for then what type of nights Jabari Smith can have. If Kevin
Hmm.
Durant can't get hot, if Sengun is kind of just doing his usual role. I mean, if Kevin Durant's not getting hot, those opportunities are now going to flow to their next shooter, who is Jabari Smith. And if Jabari Smith is hot, like that's a guy who when he hits his threes, he's dialed in. Also, I mean, what that's a 6'11" power forward
Yeah.
that moves like a guard, like maybe not a guard, but moves like a small forward. Very lanky guy who hits the glass hard. Like he's kind of like the perfect like archetype that you want out of a guy you can develop. So yeah, I mean, with the Rockets again, on that 9-1 stretch there in their last 10, Jabari Smith, I'm sure, has had a much bigger impact. Especially like again, Kevin Durant's a little older. You're getting to the end of the season, you're gonna make the playoffs. You're not necessarily pushing Slim Reaper to his limits right now.
He took the burner tweets personally now. Now he's like, all right, I'm gonna show you what I can do.
Yeah, I mean, imagine like you're a kid who's like, I want to be an NBA player. I want to be like Kevin Durant, and you're just getting dissed by him because you're on his team.
It's like, damn, man.
Hero. It's like,
All right.
it's like the Incredibles photo of like Syndrome just like looking up at the photo of
Oh,
Mr. Incredible.
yeah, at the computer.
um, yeah, no, Jabari Smith. Yeah, he's a guy that a couple seasons ago I loved taking his lines just because he was a very
We
consistent,
both
like
did.
high ceiling, low floor kind of guy.
Yeah.
Like he would get close to those numbers. He might screw you over on a couple of them, but he had a pretty good track record on some of these lines a couple of seasons ago.
Hmm.
And obviously now in the last 10 games. But going to my player of the week, oddly enough, and it's not entirely biased out of what we saw last night because he almost lost them the game, but LaMelo Ball. Now, there's a couple things that I wanted to consider when looking at LaMelo's stats, and I'm talking mainly about the month of April. And I know we've only had about 5 games total for the month of April, but LaMelo Ball's a guy who, for that Hornets team, he commands volume. So just because he takes a lot of shots, and if you know jack about basketball, if you got volume like that, that doesn't mean you're just hitting like a 50% clip. Like just because you have the rights to shoot doesn't mean you're going to be shooting well most of the time. And LaMelo Ball, in the month of April, shot about 45%. Some of these games, under 40, but that's kind of just NBA. But in those games as well, and in the month of April, he's averaging 25 points a game. On the season, he averaged about 20, so already outperforming himself just in this month alone. And the Hornets have really had to play every single game. They're not a team that can sit their guys as they come down late in the stretch. Like they had to play against the Knicks, they had to play against the Pistons and the Celtics. Every game in the month, they've had to play in. And in LaMelo Ball's last 5, his points line, he's gone 4 out of the last 5 on the over. Consensus line's right about 22 and a half. And just I think that on top of the playing performance, just as a bit of a cherry on top. 30 points in that game, 10 assists, and in the month of April also averaging about 25 and 8. So he's been very efficient overall just for the Hornets production. And I think that he's shown up a lot of times when it matters. And literally with their season on the line, less than 15 seconds left, he's able to finesse a scoop layup. So LaMelo Ball is easily my player of the week. I know that Hornets team's a little also shaky on who is going to be the guy on any given night, but
You just reminded me too that Nico and I made our season-long bets for the NBA, and I just checked, and we both were wrong by 1 point. uh, I
what's funny is I think
I had
mine's going to
Lamelo.
be
I,
ridiculous.
I I think I had Lamelo 8.5 assists or over 8, like averaging 8 assists on the season. He averaged 7, and then I think Nico had Brandon Ingram over 20.5 on the season, and he averaged 20.
You know what? I thought mine was going to be way off. Devin Booker over 28 and a half,
Hmm.
almost averaging 30 points. He averaged 26.1 this year, and I don't
That's
think
not
he missed
bad.
much time at all.
Oh, but
But
you were just mentioning Lamelo. I was like, oh wait, yeah, no, close. It was close though.
Yeah. But I'll flip it around. Go to my poop player here. This is funny. I like picking on guys like this. Max Struess.
You have to tell the story about Max Struess though. That with
What
Nico, the
what
Max
is the
Struess
exact
fade.
story? Oh, do you remember it better than me?
I'm pretty sure it was the Celtics Cavs series 2 years ago, and I bet the over on Max Struess. I'm pretty sure, and then Nico took
Mm.
his under in every category, like as a
And it
parlay,
hit.
and it hit.
But that's also kind of the guy Max Struess like is as a player. Like it's almost like it's he and Duncan Robinson are basically in the same category of who they are, like type of player. Like it's a guy who's going to just heave shots up. A lot of them are going to probably look like 3 pointers. And if he can't get hot, that box score looks like he just did cardio. If he can, he's practically the reason why a team wins. But recently in this last little bit of stretch, and also Max Struess has been not healthy for a majority of the season. He just came back in March 15th. So not necessarily saying like Max Struess you suck because you haven't played enough games to really get yourself back into the rhythm. But he hasn't had necessarily surprised anyone. In his points line, he's been under in his last or in his last 10. The under is hit about 8 out of 10 times. I think in the last 15. Um, the last 15. I'm looking at it right now. Here it is. Yeah, Max Struess is under in the last 15 games. Has hit 11 out of 15 times.
Yuckers.
So he's a guy who's tricky to bet on because again, he either implodes or he explodes. So, you know, 36% field goal shooting in the month of March, which is really the bulk of his games that he played. And also not covering much of any spreads or not spreads, but lines here for his production has been something to watch out for. Interestingly enough, his most profitable, if you ever are really interested in betting on Max Struess, he's been hitting on his rebound line pretty often, 11 out of 15 times on the over of 4.5. So keep an eye on that, but I wouldn't take on him to make shots.
I hate Max Struess, but
You have reason to hate Max
yeah, I
Struess and
do.
Gabe Vincent and Duncan Robinson.
Yes, I hate all of those guys. But moving over to my poop player of the week, this might shock you just from the name. Kawhi the Claw Leonard. Sir Kawhi. We talked about him actually when we did our, I believe we did like our top 5 draft. He's actually having like a very efficient season, but betting wise, not so much, man. First of all, his points line has been at 29.5. He's hit that one for his last 10. He had 34 against Dallas on the 7th, but since then, he's averaged 25, which isn't bad though. Like averaging 25 is not bad, but in the scheme of things for betting with his line so high, he just hasn't been hitting. 3 for 10 in assists. He's 1 for 10 in points assists in his last 10. 0 for 10 in PRAs in his last 10, actually.
Ooh.
Funny enough, the last time he hit his points, rebound, assist line was March 21st against Denver.
Oh my gosh.
Um, his line has been set for PRAs at 41.5, and in his last 10, he's averaged 35. So, with the production that he's had for all season long, especially within this last few games, he's kind of taken a little bit of a downgrade. He's been playing, and it's not necessarily saying he's not producing. He is, but it just hasn't been at the level that he has been doing all season. So this last week, if you've been betting the over on Kawhi, really hasn't been hitting, which is also it's interesting to me because his line, like for points, it's the over is still favored. Like he hasn't hit it in 10 games and 29.5 if you go whatever draft, but like on DraftKings it's minus 112. Where on some sports lines it's still like if you use FanDuel it's minus 120. Like they're favoring him to score still. So I mean, it is a comeback game against the Warriors, but granted, against the Warriors this season, he's averaged 24, and his line is still set at 29. So, kind of just
You got to take into account for that matchup in specifics is like the Warriors don't have much to offer defensively against a guy
right.
like Kawhi, and he is a guy who can drop 30 in a game. Would I be stupid enough to say I think Kawhi is going to drop 30 tonight with confidence? Hell no.
No.
He's a guy who's very impactful on both sides of the ball, defensively, on the boards, decent facilitator. Um, and yes, a guy who can put up volume on the scoreboard there, but he's not Luca. Like
No.
he's not that scorer level. He's not that level on an impact wise on just in basketball, but he's not Luca. So yeah, I can't believe that line is at 29 and a half and that anyone is taking that over is kind of insane.
Yeah.
Because if that was on the season, the under would have hit 44 out of 65 games.
I was gonna say he averages 27 on the season, so that has hit
Oh,
32% on the year.
yeah, even at 28 and a half, the consensus line for him, like that would have been about a 37% hit rate on the year.
Right.
So
Still a great
you know
season from
what? You are
Kawhi.
you are heavily you're heavily making me you're influencing me to just hammer that under too.
Well, it's still a great season for Kawhi, but betting wise, not so much. But
Yeah. Before we get clip baited
yeah,
here,
yeah, yeah. No, 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 no. Kawhi Leonard, great
Kawhi
season
Leonard
for the
having a
Clippers.
great season.
Great, yes, great season for the Clippers. Not knocking that. Betting wise, has not been great. Profitable wise. But just to recap, our teams and players of the week and poop teams of the week. I had the Celtics. Brooklyn had the Rockets for teams of the week. Poop teams of the week. We had the Warriors and the Heat, and then players: Jabari Smith, Kawhi Leonard, LaMelo Ball, and Max Strus. All right. So now, getting
Meat and
in
potatoes,
the
they
meat and
say.
potatoes, as Nico would say, the full-on
I
bracket.
don't really say that.
Um, so all three of us filled out our own brackets on ESPN. I'm not sure Nico's picks. He kind of didn't really say it. We also can't see each other's picks until the playoffs actually start. But we can kind of talk about if there's a series right now that you're interested in. I know I want to talk about the Lakers Rockets series, but if there's anything that you're interested in, and then if you want to mention too, like who you picked to win the whole thing, if you want to start off.
Yeah. I'll start things off here real quick. I'm particularly intrigued the most by the Knicks Hawks series. It's really weird for me to say because after they made that trade with Trae Young, again, I was so confused. I was like, what are the Hawks doing? They just sold, I guess you could have called him the franchise player.
Yeah.
Um, for Corey Kispert and an Unk in a second or something. So, I didn't expect anything, and definitely not that team to be now mentioned in the playoffs, and a team that is not in the play-in. So, going against the Knicks, I think, and I know we had a TikTok clip a couple weeks ago that didn't sit right with some Knicks fans, but this Hawks team has been again one of those teams that is hitting their stride at the exact right time. Nikhil Alexander-Walker has been on an absolute tear. I've had so much fun betting on him recently. His points, rebounds, assist line has literally been one of the most free things ever.
Mm-hmm.
But not just that, the Hawks have had some close games with some of the better teams. They played Cleveland and beat Cleveland by 22. That was April 10th, and I don't remember if Donovan Mitchell was playing in that game. They also lost to Cleveland by 6, but again, they're hanging around against a team that I don't think necessarily talent-wise they would typically be. Now they're going against the Knicks, a team that they just lost to by 3 points. But again, you got this slept-on roster with Nikhil Alexander-Walker, Jalen Johnson, Dyson Daniels, always a presence in like ways that you don't see necessarily unless you watch the game.
Mm-hmm.
Big defensive presence there. Nick Okongwu, undersized big man, but gets it done absolutely. Jonathan Kuminga, I'm still waiting for him to kind of solidify his role there, but he's when he can get hot, he's good. So I think they have the chance to give New York a run for their money. One thing about the Knicks is Jalen Brunson is very inconsistent and inefficient, I would say. Jalen Brunson can absolutely be the reason the other team loses the game. But Jalen Brunson can also have a night where he shoots like
9 for 30.
7 for 20. Yeah,
Yeah.
like he's
Yeah.
capable. And yes, that's basketball. Like you're never just always going to be hot, but Brunson's one of those guys that has to be on now. And Karl Anthony Towns been decent. Some guy got into a little argument with me on Instagram about Mitchell Robinson's gravitational pull and how it affects the outcome of a game. Wasn't sure where that was going. He finished that night 7-7, but Knicks are a good team. The Knicks are a good team. Josh Hart, very impactful, had 26 in one of his most recent games. But I think that the Hawks have momentum right now going into this playoffs, and there's a lot of uncertainty about like what they can do.
Right.
but I think that they've shown that they are a team that deserves to be in this playoff talk.
Draft
Um,
DraftKings has this series going over 5.5 games. It's -160 right now. So it has the.
over -160 to go over 5.5.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's just pointing to like the variability of like, yes, it's the playoffs. Defense is going to matter here, and also your guys got to step up. Now, of course, the Knicks probably have the advantage with experience here. McCollum's obviously been in the league a while, and I'm not sure Jalen Johnson what his playoff tenure is going to look like in this one. Nikhil Alexander Walker, of course, stepping up big in the regular season. We'll see if that translates, but if it does, New York's kind of in for a hell of a ride here in this series. Now,
This is a Knicks team that's also not good on the road. We can't forget
yeah,
that. Like this is
we
another
talked
this is
about
another
that.
thing where I feel like the Hawks, they kind of, if they're able to sneak away a game in New York, I don't think they'll win game one, but I think they can sneak away game two. That'd be huge. That'd be huge for
Yeah.
Atlanta.
Yep. And I just think that the place where the Hawks lack the most is going to be interior presence.
Mm.
I think if Cat can get going, I'm not sure if the Hawks necessarily have the guys who can s- physically really match up with him that well. I know Jalen Johnson's super athletic. Onyeka Okongwu, again, like I said, undersized, but you got a 7-footer who he knows how to move his body at 7 feet and can pull the three ball pretty well. So a lot of things stacked against the Hawks, but they're hitting their stride at the right time. I have the Knicks winning this one, but I guarantee it's going to be one of the better series of the playoffs
I
or
do.
the first round.
I agree, and I also have the Knicks winning, but I think it will be at least a 6 game, hope maybe even a 7 game series. I feel like, especially within the most recent years, there's been a lot of 7 game series in the first round, and that makes this time of year way more exciting, in my opinion. Um, I'm not gonna talk too much about it because we kind of been glazing the Rockets this whole episode, like kind of not directly, but I picked Houston to beat the Lakers, and I don't think that's really much of an upset. They're favored now. Um, I think the
What are the odds on
Rockets,
that?
huh?
What are the odds on that?
I'm pretty sure. I believe the Rockets are favored -260 to win, like within a game. Like, so, DraftKings, you can bet on spreads, and I think for the Rockets to win like in 3 games, so for them to win 4-1 is like +200, +100. I would take that. I definitely think that this is a Lakers team that just kind of lost their firepower in Luca. And I'm not and Austin Reeves has had a great season, but he's hurt. LeBron, like, I love
Oh
LeBron.
man,
Love LeBron.
it's reality.
It's reality. Like, this Rockets team defensively is just too good and too overpowering, in my opinion. And their young pieces, in my opinion, are just so much better than what the Lakers have right now. I think, like, Reed Shepard's a guy that can shoot the lights out for this team if he gets hot. Um, I just think the loss of Luca is just leaves this big hole, and when you have a guy like DeAndre Ayton at center, again, like, it's kind of a mix up. You don't really know what you're gonna get every night, and he's had a bad track record in 2 teams in the postseason, and a lot of Lakers fans have been kind of mix and match with him this year too. So I just think matchup wise, it really suits the Rockets, and I think they have a lot more versatility in their lineup to outscore the Lakers. And I don't think it's going to be as close as we think it is, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
no, I agree. I mean, the Lakers are kind of in trouble right now. They're leaning on some of these pieces like Rui Hachimura is now getting an advanced role now. Braun's gonna have to be pretty much the main facilitator. I mean, who's been starting? Luke Kennard in place.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, which is insane that that's the starting point guard of the 3 seed team in the West. Like, but again, like injuries are going to absolutely plague this playoff run for them now. And if by any way they can possibly escape this first round, maybe we're in for some magic coming into the rest of this stretch. And then that $10 bet that I put on the Lakers to win the championship like 3 or 4 weeks ago isn't looking that bad. But again, I don't think that's going to happen. They're pulling Dalton Connect back out of their pocket
yeah.
out of for the like, and he's getting some meaningful minutes. Hell, Bronny was getting like first half minutes. That should never happen.
I, they won by 30 against the Jazz, and I checked the box score, and he had double digits. I was like,
Yeah.
ooh!
And they're kind of putting all their pieces in play now because they have to. Drew Timmy was getting some meaningful minutes. Jared Vanderbilt, the guy I've seen on the bench all year, hasn't done much, but I don't know, man. I feel bad for the Lakers. They really had something special happening in this last month, um, but now, again, injury bug is just gonna fuck it up.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry for my swearing. Oh no. But I agree. The Rockets probably have a pretty easy one here, and if Luca and Austin Reeves are in, this is a completely different topic. But without that, it's just not. I don't see it possible. Now let's go through our brackets here.
Right.
I want to real quick touch upon mine because it's gonna spark the conversation a little bit. I think even before I even heard yours, I could already guess who was gonna be hearing in the finals. Now that now that I've heard it, it doesn't shock me one bit that you also have that team winning in
Mm-hmm.
the finals. All right, I'm gonna go straight through mine here. We go west down. In the Western Conference, I got the first matchups here. Thunder obviously beating whoever ends up taking the 8th seed. Rockets beating the Lakers. I have the Timberwolves beating the Nuggets.
Hmm.
Shocker, maybe. But I think,
Interesting.
if you look at the stats, Denver's been defensively one of the worst teams overall this season, just in terms of defensive efficiency and points allowed, scoring. Denver has not been a good team defensively at all. Um, Spurs beating the Trailblazers. I'm not sure how Portland kind of maneuvers their way around that. And then that'll be the first round for the West. In the East, Pistons beating the 8th seed. Cavs beating the Raptors. Knicks beating the Hawks and Celtics beating the Phillies.
The
The
Philadelphia
Sixers.
Phillies.
Yeah. Yeah, the Celtics beating Bryce Harper. The Sixers / Magic. Let's go to the semis now. Thunder beating the Rockets. Spurs beating the Timberwolves. And then the Eastern Conference, I have the Cavs beating the Pistons.
I do as
And
well.
then the Celtics beating the Knicks. Conference finals. Thunder beating the Spurs. And I have the Cavs beating the Celtics.
It's stupid.
And then I just have the Thunder just going back to back, just for the sake of beating the Celtics, but then losing.
The only difference that we have is obviously our champions, and then I have Denver beating Minnesota in the first round. I think that series is gonna go 7, but I
How
think
deep? How deep do you have Denver going?
I have them. I think I have them losing in the semis after that. Pretty sure.
You
I
see,
think
here's the thing for me. Like Boston's done an incredible job of just turning their season around from something that no one had real expectations for. I just really question now a little bit more of the depth on that team as we get into the playoffs. Like regular seasons, you got 83 games to play. Like you got plenty of time, and then you get to the playoffs. Do you think Baylor Scheinman's actually going to be that same player when it comes to these playoff moments? I don't know. Do I think that the Cavs have a bit more experience, and now they've gotten things flowing with Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, and Evan Mobley having some pretty decent nights recently? I think that's pretty deep. That's pretty good. And don't count out Max Strus to repeat on the Celtics again. But it's a team that I think that has just a bit more experience to them in the playoffs aspect. I don't know about the bench of that or the depth of the Celtics in the playoffs this year. They got Tatum, they got Brown, Pritchard, big time, and Derek White, big time players. Like I'm not going to deny that. I just think the Cavs may have the edge to pull off an upset.
I can definitely see where you're coming from, but also at the same time, this is a Cavs team that's like almost the same as when the Celtics played them in the semis 2 years ago. Gave them a run for their money, but in the end, I mean, the Celtics were able to. I mean, and also this is a completely different team. I mean, the Celtics had Kristaps and Drew at this time, so like it's different lineups, it's different rosters. But James
I argue
Harden,
that team's better.
yeah, but James Harden doesn't really scare me in the postseason. Like, I'm sorry, but like the Celtics team has played way better teams over the years with like, and it's the same people every year. Like we've played Harden in Philly before, beat them in 7. To me this cat like I definitely see where you're coming from, and I do, and I like the Cavs. I think the Cavs are a good team, but it's kind of the whole thing that we've talked about all season with like Mobley and Jarrett Allen. It's just like they don't really utilize their size and their ability, and it kind of show and it's kind of showed all season. And like this is also a Cavs team that's going up against Toronto that got swept like in the season series against Toronto, and Jakob Poeltl had a pretty good field day against Cleveland. So obviously we both have them beating the 1 seed, but I think it's kind of different when you look at the Pistons roster in the Celtics roster. And to say that, and I get the whole experience thing, but like Mitchell's never made it out of the second round in his career, and Harden's same. Harden's made it to the conference finals twice. Like there's experience, but it's not necessarily winning. So I don't know how I would put that. But
Yeah, and
I see your
I'm gonna
point.
say
I definitely see your point. But I'm also
I
gonna
have a
take
weird
I'm gonna take the team that's still pretty good defensively and also top 10 in scoring and shooting.
I have a weird take here the closer that James Harden gets to the end of his career, the more desperate he's going to be to do whatever he can to get
I
that ring.
brother, I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. I think he'll be on another
He's
team
36
within
years
2
old.
years.
Bro has an MVP to his name, and he has never seen the championship. It's almost like Zion's take of like, I just want to be in the playoffs, which is insane, by the way, that he's never hurt.
Yeah, I know. But
But yeah, no, I think there's a lot of variables here. But I think that on paper these teams match up much better than people think.
who's your champion?
So,
Thunder?
I got the Thunder. Yeah,
I took my home team. I took the
I know.
C's
I
against the
know.
Thunder in
Someone,
the finals.
if
Like
someone put a gun to my head and told me to predict the entire Eastern Conference for your bracket without looking at it, I think I would. I'd probably die, but I would get 95% of it right. Because
it
it
was
would end up
right.
being the Celtics going all the way.
You and I had it right. You even had my
Yeah,
upset
yeah,
right
yeah.
too. You even have it. I had the Pistons lose because I get a lot. I like this Pistons team because I think they're fun, but I get a lot of the 2014 Atlanta Hawks vibes when I like, and I feel bad,
I
but I
agree.
feel like any team that's like kind of randomly up and coming that's a one seed like gets labeled as this. Like we talk about the Jazz a few years ago when they were the one seed. Obviously they had their flaws when it came to the postseason. There's a lot of teams that are like really really good in the regular season, but their cracks begin to show when they play the same team when you have to go against the same team 6 times. So
Yeah, and
uh,
we'll see. I mean, I think that Detroit, especially statistically, has been one of the better defensive teams overall, and we saw that stretch without Kate Cunningham. They didn't miss a step
hmm.
without Kate. Dennis Jenkins, all of a sudden stepping up into that starting role and looked like a starting point guard for any other team. So and as long as like they can kind of keep that clicking, and maybe they're a bit more of a factor. But I also, like you said, I think I'm not really ready to give them that full credit until I see them, in the first round. I think they get through the first round. I don't think they get further than that.
Well, it would have been nice to know what Nico picked. I'm gonna assume that he's gonna go with the Thunder winning the NBA championship. That's my best guess.
But I believe that was what he told me last night.
Makes sense.
What are your thoughts on that,
I mean, it make
fellow Celtics fan?
yeah, it's stupid, but I mean, it's the realistic pick. I mean, this is a team that has been dominant all year. They were literally talks about being the greatest regular season team at one point with just how dominant they were looking. This is a team that anyone on the bench can drop 20 on your head. Like I know, I understand that. So I'm being realistic about it. But there's a slimmer of hope in there because the greatest regular season team of all time did not win a ring. So there's a slimmer of hope. Slimmer of hope in there. But our last category, first round best bets. Now, mine's kind of like a future. I have the Cavs Raptors series going over 5.5 games. That's minus 115. There's really 2 series in this first round that I could see going 7, and it's the Cavs Raptors, and it's also the Hawks Knicks that we mentioned. And I just think it's because how these two teams meshed with their rosters. The Raptors, like I mentioned already, they won all 3 meetings against Cleveland in the regular season. Cleveland's 7th in points per game on the season. Toronto, this kind of surprised me, 22nd. They're like bottom 10 in points per game scoring wise. But one thing though, both of these teams pretty subpar at getting to the line. They're both 14th and 16th in free throw attempts per game, and they're both shooting under 80% from the line this season, which is kind of average, or that's kind of ass actually. So not really getting there. So I feel like both of these teams are really going to rely on shooting, not necessarily getting to the line. But I mean, I think this is going to be a really good series. You got Brandon Ingram on a brand new team, Scotty Barnes too, and making another postseason appearance. Jacopoto's been playing well, going up against Harden and Mitchell. The odds on this is -115 for the over and the under, so it's kind of saying it could go both ways. But I'm going to take the over here. I think it goes at least 6.
It's a tricky series because Brandon Ingram, good, very good player. Emmanuel quickly, serviceable starting point guard. Scotty Barnes, he's either very good or a absolute non-factor. He's had some games this year where he's like literally done nothing.
Yeah.
He's almost like cardio. Like I almost think about like every time I think about Scotty Barnes, it's when he misses the free throw and just starts yelling. It's
I
like the
forgot
first
about
round,
that.
like, oh yeah, Scotty Barnes. Like, oh! um, but no, Scotty Barnes hella athletic, and he's a guy defensively that has most of his impact on that end, and on the offensive side, I just wish he would be a little bit more versatile. But I think that Raptors team, if we want to talk about lack of depth, the Raptors like I don't know where half of their depth comes from. Like Jamal Sheed,
Yeah, their
um,
bench is like not great.
it doesn't have the same sort of I think impact
RJ
off the
Barrett.
bench as yeah, RJ Barrett. How could I forget? Well,
Yeah.
that's RJ Barrett's been okay.
Yeah, he's been okay.
Um,
But,
and then
like guys
there's
like Grady Dick,
Colin
Jacoby
Murray
Walter.
Boyles gets a decent amount of time, and he's had some okay games too. I do worry about the Raptors and their actual ability to show up.
Yeah.
Like I think it's solely on in the hands of Ingram and Barrett and Barnes. So, and obviously it's up to your best players. I just think that the Cavs are way more dangerous than the Raptors in terms of if they can get hot, the Cavs can get real hot.
Right.
Over 5.5 games, I don't hate it. I think that defense wins championships. Defense is absolutely gonna be the deciding factor here because Donovan Mitchell, if you can shut him down, Harden is not necessarily the most efficient shooter. And Evan Mobley can take it to about the free throw, and that's about it. And then Jared Allen just, don't let him get near the rim.
Yeah.
So it's kind of simple in terms of what do you try to do to mitigate what Cleveland can do. It's you got to shut down those two. But going to my best bet for at least the first round, I got one here. I'm gonna go Minnesota +6 against Denver in the first game. Reason being, and it's weird to say like betting against the Joker, but the Joker's been great. The Nuggets have been kind of lackluster in every other margin other than scoring and slash winning. Like the Nuggets are one of the worst teams defensively in the league, right? Bottom 10. You know who's a better defensive team than the Nuggets is the Mavs.
Oh. Oh.
And Denver is in the same conversations as Chicago, New Orleans, Memphis, Brooklyn, Indiana, Milwaukee, the bottom of the barrel teams, and that's right where Denver is ranked in defensive efficiency. So this is a team that they can't stop they can't stop people from getting to the rim. They've had that problem all year. But now what I really want to point to is going to be the average score margin. Um, Denver's average score margin right around 5.1. So when they win games, it's right around 5 points. But again, defense kind of tightens that window, especially in the playoffs. So I don't expect to see the Nuggets, necessarily blow this game out of the water. I'd be willing to take this +6, assuming this is going to be a close game and assuming that the Timberwolves are going to show up completely healthy. Right now, the only questionables are going to be Ant and Julius Randle, but it's the playoffs. I don't anticipate that they sit for any reason. So, I'm going on the stats side of this one that I don't think Denver is going to be a team that's necessarily going to open the gates on the Timberwolves. Denver's also had a lot of really close wins this year. They've been a team that's to me known for keeping teams in the game a little too long. And I think that's come to plague them. Like they lost to Memphis earlier, not too long ago. But against like Portland, they only won by 5 points in overtime. The fact that even went to overtime against Portland is something. Beat the Mavs by 7 points, the Jazz by 6, and these are all games where they're pretty much healthy. So
So would you
a lot
say
of
your
questions
best
about.
bet then is just Minnesota to win the series against Denver?
I wouldn't say to win the series, even though I have them in my bracket. That's kind of just relying on the fact that I don't think Denver is a great team. That I think Ant might turn it up in this series, but my best bet is probably just going to be erring on the side of caution and betting on Minnesota spread. You could even take their money line the first game, but that's just my best bet for this first round.
All right. Well, to recap, quickly going over the bracket, for champions, Brooklyn has the Thunder winning the NBA title. I have the Celtics. For kind of upsets, though, we both have a Cavs-Celtics conference finals. Brooklyn has the Cavs winning. I have the Celtics beating the Cavs, and we both have Cleveland beating Detroit. I really wish Nico was here to kind of get his thoughts on that. I'm sure next week when he's here, when we're all here, hopefully. Um,
We'll be a couple games.
yeah, we'll be a couple games in, but we'll kind of be able to talk about it. And then also quickly, our first round best bets. Mine over 5.5 games. Cavs Raptors -115 on DraftKings, and then Brooklyn has Minnesota +6 spread for game 1. And he also says you could take the money line. So, anything else? Anything else you want to throw in there?
No, no. Hope we all win some money. And I'm really excited to see what happens with these Suns. I feel like they should be a better team than losing to the Trailblazers, but we'll see.
Right. We got 2 more games tonight. I'll be watching very closely because depending on who wins tonight, that's who the Celtics will play in the first round. We were kind of talking about this before. I said Philly at first, but now you kind of leaned me into Orlando. I'd rather the Magic to get the win. But
I don't know if I'd want to see Tyrese Maxey, a Paul Joel Embiid appearance, and then Paul George.
Yeah.
And Vita Edgecombe if he's good.
That's
to go,
true. I didn't even think about that.
And even Kelly Oubre can have his moments, but or if I want to see PB No J, a returning Franz Wagner and T-Rex arms. So sorry, Desmond Bain makes so much more money. He makes so much more money than me. I can't talk.
Socials like that _pod. You can find this episode on Spotify and YouTube. We also post clips, TikTok, and Instagram. They've been getting a lot of traction recently, so thank you to everybody who's been sharing them and actually not being mean to us in the comments.
No, we welcome it.
No, we welcome all the opinions. We like having discussions with people, and then once basketball is out, we're gonna have to start talking baseball eventually. We're gonna have to get into that, but that's not till June. We got plenty of time.
Yeah.
But it is Nick in Brooklyn for the Like That Pod, episode 28. Signing off. See you guys.
See ya.